Oh, sweet. We had 21 people in the waiting room on time. Shout out to the queers who were on time. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to hold for a few minutes because we know bitches are late. I'm Jessica of Remodeled Love. Here's my wonderful panel. We're not doing official introductions yet, but we would love to hear in the chat where you're calling in from today. We want to know what corners of the earth we have called in and summoned in. Did we just lose somebody? Did we just lose Laura?
We did.
Okay. Okay, well, now we really have to wait. We've got Seattle, Portland, Michigan, Long Beach, more Portland. What's up? UK? All right. We got the Midwest, New York, Berlin, Switzerland, Florida. This is amazing. Thank you guys so much. Oh, I have the ability to show like war-torn Portland. See? Look at this. This is so cool. I could like show a comment up in the screen. Ohio, what's up, Buckeyes? Canada. Yes, I'm also proud of my fellow West Coast people. That's why I don't have any makeup on because I just woke up. We have lost one of our panelists. Oh, can you guys hear my children screaming in the background? Any close? No, we don't have. Let me,
Sorry.
Dana, can
I'm
you
back.
look into that really quick?
Yeah, I'm looking into it right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's back. We're going to hold for one more minute.
Yeah, we'll do our best. Hopefully it won't be too bad.
I can't turn your echo cancellation on, Laura, because we're already recording, but you have headphones on, so I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
Can you
throw
talk
it in
for
the
a
live
second,
stream.
just so
If
I
I
can
sound
be
like
sure?
crap, we'll try to adjust.
No, actually, you sound great. How does it sound, everybody listening out there in the world? I think everybody sounds great. We're going to give it one more minute here, and then we are going to get started. We appreciate everybody being on time. How many people? We've got 25 people live. We've sold like, I want to say 160 tickets. So I think a lot of people are here for the recording, but we love the energy of being live with you all. And we'll be able to spend more time in the Q&A. So that's really exciting as well. Okay. I think we're good. You guys ready? We're gonna get started. Okay, everybody, welcome to Mistakes. Wait, did we lose Laura again? Oh no. My poor Laura. Okay, she just said. Sorry, everybody, we have to wait. She's having. No one else is having troubles? Okay. Did anybody have troubles getting into the live? We're going live. This is why I love live broadcasting, because you just got to roll with it. I wonder if we didn't have this issue in any of our tech runs with her. Or any. It's still not letting me. Sorry, y'all. We're trying to troubleshoot over here. Go get some tea, some water, some coffee, some chocolate, because chocolate keeps you grounded, and the vulnerability that's going to happen in this webinar is definitely going to make you need something to help you stay in your body. Get some weed, maybe a little micro dosage going on. Yes, chocolate. Yes. Chocolate
Get
was
your
very
notebooks.
necessary for panel one. I'm also missing the ability to pin, which makes no sense.
Jess, are you the one sharing the slides?
No, that's Dana.
Oh, okay.
You need me to do something, Shay?
Oh no, I
No.
just learned that you can't do both, I think, at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I'm having someone else do it. But oh,
Sorry about that.
she said we're figuring it out. How did you figure it out, Laura?
Oh, I downloaded it on my phone. My
Oh,
computer was just freaking out. So the
okay.
9-year-old computer could not do it. The 2-year-old iPhone, hopefully.
Did you say 9-year-old computer?
Yes.
Yeah.
My computer is older than my children.
Yep. And the time flies by, and you're like, I don't understand why this isn't working. And then you're like, oh,
Yeah, it's
because the
because
technology has progressed immensely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody, we're back. Welcome to Mistakes Were Made, a 3-hour webinar about navigating the pitfalls of relationship anarchy with honesty, humor, and hard-won insight. I am your host today, Jessica Daylover of Remodeled Love. And with me today on this panel, we have Che Luna. We have Annie Undone. We've got the computer problems, but she made it here anyway, Laura Boyle. And Gabrielle Smith. And with us moderating today, the beautiful Dana. This is one of Shanae's Polycule members who has become my go-to moderator. She's amazing. If you need any technology help, you can put it in the chat. It says, Laura, can you turn your camera to, are you in portrait or landscape? Okay. I don't know why it just gave me that note. Okay. Anyway. Perfect. So if you need any help in the chat, Dana can help you. Dana will also be providing links, resources, anything like that. So if you need technology help, if you have a question, the way that this is going to work is that we are going to do some introductions and take a look at the privileges that are coming with us today and the wisdom that we're going to be spouting. We're going to be then heading into our disclaimer for the day. We're going to start with an opening about what relationship anarchy means to each panelist, because of course that is the nature of relationship anarchy, is that you are designing something that works for you. So relationship anarchy itself as a way to approach relationships does not universally apply. So even the panelists have a different way that they think about it. Then we're going to get into our mistakes. Each panelist today is going to be presenting 2 mistakes. And they're going to share their mistake, the anecdotal version, and what they learned from making that mistake. Then we're going to shoot back to the panelists, where the panelists are then going to share reflections or things that landed in their world, what came up for them while their colleague was sharing. And then we will shoot out to the audience for Q&A. So you can ask those questions in the chat at any time, and we'll be keeping track of them. You can also ask them like when you think of them later or whatever. And we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. If you have a question about, I'm sorry, what did she just say? Or can you go back? Something that like we need to answer in the moment for your understanding, throw it in the chat and Dana will get that information for you or we'll address it right away. But otherwise we will wait to answer questions during the Q&A portion, but you can ask them at any time and we'll be keeping track of them. So without any further ado, Dana, hit the next slide for me. We'll also be taking a break halfway through. So our panelists are going to keep their microphones muted when they're not talking. Again, the clarifying questions can be asked in the moment. This workshop is being recorded, and you will get a copy by Tuesday. You will get a copy of the raw recording, which will have AI generated captions. And then within a few months, I will have an edited version to you to all purchases, and that will include intentionally captioned recording. And I will also be, if I am not able to, usually I have the ability to make whoever's speaking larger than the slideshow. And for some reason, that's not working right now. We're working on it. We're not sure why. When you get the edited version, the speaker will be large and the slideshow will be smaller. Sorry, my brain, I'm missing words a lot. Perimenopause is weird. So just know that the edited version will be a lot cleaner and crispier. We appreciate you being on the live journey with us. If you're watching on a phone, it might be a little, everyone might be tiny, but we promise that the wisdom being spouted is anything but tiny today. The main disclaimer is that we do not proclaim universalism to the truths and lessons that we have learned through the mistakes we've made. Today, we are only speaking for ourselves as to what we feel has become wisdom for us. So please take what resonates and leave the rest. And as always, we encourage critical thinking. And so don't pedestal anybody here today. And if something is triggering for you, we invite you to sit with that. It might be triggering because it's not true for you and it's not for you. It might be triggering because it is for you and your shadow is being triggered by the truth of it. And only you can know that. And so we have no need for you to believe anything that we're saying. We are just here to teach what has landed in our path and that we feel called to share with you all today. And as always, challenge us. You should be critical of us. And if you feel like you want to ask a question or challenge us on something, you are absolutely free to do that. And now we're going to head into personal RA meanings. But first, do I have any questions? Any questions from the audience? Any questions from my panelists right now? We've made up some really good time. Oh, sorry, we're going to head into intro and privilege checks. I skipped. So whenever you are learning from somebody, but I particularly in the polyamorous, non-monogamous online content creator world, I really, really, really encourage you to be keeping in mind the identity and the privileges of the person who's speaking, because the privileges we walk with shape the way that we experience non-monogamy, relationship anarchy, polyamory, all of this stuff. And of course, relationship anarchy and polyamory are not necessarily mutually inclusive. Like you can be a monogamous relationship anarchist, but all of the people on this call are also non-monogamy polyamory content creators. And I really want you to be aware of the privileges and the identities that everyone here is walking through that path with, because these intersect with how we experience what we perceive as truth. So we are going to start with very brief intros and privilege checks so that you know when they're talking the identity that they're walking through the world with. We're going to start with Che. Oh, you're still muted. What is going on over there?
Okay. Ooh,
Oh, there we are.
Hi.
Hi, Che.
Sorry. Hi, y'all. I'm Che. My pronouns are they, them. I'm so excited to be here today. Let's see. I just moved to the unceded lands of the Tongva people, colonially known as Los Angeles. I am mixed. I am trans and non-binary. I am so fucking grateful to be queer. I am autistic. I'm an autistic ADHDer. I'm married to a queer, non-binary Puerto Rican baddie, and we've been together for 13 years, have been practicing polyamory and relationship anarchy for 8 years. I have 2 other precious queer partnerships, many comets, and a beautiful community of friendships. And I hold the privileges of being light-skinned and having European heritage. I am also able-bodied. I am 35. I hold educational privilege. English was my first language. I'm an American citizen, and I am openly gay and trans and polyamorous in the world, which is an immense privilege. Yeah, I'll pause
Thank
there
you.
and I'll send it over to Annie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Undone. My pronouns are she, they, any, really. I'm fucking 40. I am a white, non-binary, femme-presenting queer in a hetero-presenting relationship. I grew up middle class. I am divorced. I am autistic. I have PTSD, and I am able-bodied. And I think then we're throwing it over to
Laura.
Gabby or Laura. Sorry.
Laura, then Gabby.
Hi guys, my name's Laura Boyle. I am a white, middle-aged mom of a couple of kids. I am either lucky or unlucky enough to be able to be out as polyamorous, but not obviously polyamorous in the world. For several years, I lived in a V, and we had the sort of opposite direction of luck and not luck of having to come out every time we were out in public, basically, with our kids. And now we just do it when the kids tell people about their moms and a dad all of the time, which is still all of the time, even as they get older. One of the joys of raising neurodivergent kids is that they will tell everybody your business for years longer than the toddler age telling everybody your business that all kids do. I am autistic, ADHD. I have epilepsy that disabled me severely enough that I had 4 brain surgeries in 2020. Luckily, those were successful, and so you see me here doing most things pretty regularly at this point. But yeah, those are the sort of things that intersect in terms of privilege for me. I have been lucky enough to get a lot of education, and sharing it is one of the things that bring me the most joy. So I'm really excited to be part of this panel with all of these great people and talk with you guys about these sort of relationship things today. So I guess I'm throwing it over to Gabby now.
Ooh. Hey guys, I am Gabrielle Smith. I am a 30-year-old queer, disabled Black Latina from Queens, living in Brooklyn right now, on, stolen Lenape land. I have ADHD and bipolar type 2. I was diagnosed with both in my 20s. Um, and, it's always important for me to acknowledge that I'm privileged as a mixed race, light skinned cis woman who's like traditionally attractive. Um, I'm lucky to be out as non monogamous and queer. And I grew up in like a sex neutral home with a parent who was a sex worker. So I'm lucky to like never have gotten slut shamed. My family is very like, either it's not my business or, all I care about is that you're happy. So, yeah.
What a rad, diverse lineup. I appreciate you all so much for saying yes to the invitation to do this panel today. Panel 1 was so rich with so much wisdom and diversity, and I know panel 2 is going to be the same thing. We're really honored that everyone who is here live today has decided to join in this energy live with us, and we're just really glad everyone's here. And we are going to, in this same order now, I'm going to ask the panelists. I asked the panelists, and this was actually their idea to do this, to think about how they would summarize what relationship anarchy means to them in 2 minutes. So that's going to be the foundation of the wisdom we're sharing today. So we're going to start with Che on what RA means to them.
Okay. Let's see if I can do this in 2 minutes. For me, relationship anarchy is a somatic, embodied, and erotic practice of connection, a way of learning to listen to my body for truth instead of relying on oppressive social scripts, a way of holding pleasure, boundaries, community as interwoven acts of liberation. It's the practice of dismantling internalized colonization and white supremacy that tell me romance is most important, or that sex is the only valid and legitimate kind of intimacy. In relationship anarchy, every one of my relations, lovers, friends, land, waters, animals, creative partners, queer, platonic, beloveds, chosen family, become this living ecosystem of care, and the practice, that we're aspiring to is like no one is sitting above or below another, and we're really practicing rooting into the understanding that love multiplies when it's liberated from control. And yeah, relationship anarchy, it asks me to meet love as a practice of freedom, to feel, to choose, to change, to renegotiate, to rest, to let every connection be what it truly is and not what I am taught it should be. And it is also a slow, intentional art of loving without ownership, and an ongoing invitation to reclaim my desires and my limits, and to let love, like in all its forms, be alive and like move through me. The end.
Wow. That was poetry, y'all. Wow. Okay. Annie, we're going to head to you. And now you're really going to see how relationship anarchy really changes per the spirit of the person walking it.
Yeah. So for me, relationship anarchy boils down to tailor-made relationships for you and yours, with an emphasis on deconstruction of mononormativity and heteronormativity. Currently, what that means for me in my practice is that I'm working to decentralize romance, by which I mean to give romantic love less power over me so that I can seat myself in that seat of power. So I do this through intergenerational living. I live with my mom, my partner, and my child in a really unconventional 2-household setup. I do have a bit of an expanded definition of RA in the workbook that you have included, which gets into kind of the philosophical leanings of like politics and stuff like that. But as I talk about my mistakes today, I think these are the things that I want to emphasize the most, right? Is the deconstruction of mononormativity and heteronormativity, and having something outside of the traditional relationship setup that we tailor make for ourselves.
Beautiful. I resonate with all of that. Laura.
So for me, I view relationship anarchy as a philosophy of relating, whereby you're taking the like underpinnings and ideas of political anarchy and applying them to your interpersonal relationships. So that means that you're engaging in relationships with anyone, with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, that is largely pro-autonomy, that is anti-hierarchy, that is anti-government intervention in your relationships, but that is sort of pro-community, that is pro-self-determination, that is pro every stakeholder having a voice in decision making. and that it's not like a strict set of rules as to how you have to relate, but instead a kind of loose set of philosophies and guidelines as to better practices for how to be a person with other people. And in personing with other people over time, you build a network and community for yourself. And each person's network and community looks a little different in practice over time, right? And so it's not like chaos or things on fire or no commitments anywhere or any of these things that like a Western American conceit of anarchy might be. It's instead making the commitments that you and the people who you have in your life feel are necessary to meet your goals and meeting them together over time. So yeah, so that's what relationship anarchy is to me. And that's how it sort of interweaves with all the connections in my life. And I really liked Annie's point about decentering romance, because I think that becomes an important part of having this intersect with all your relationships and not just your romances. Although a lot of people clearly encounter this through their romances first, because that's where we find a lot of our ideas about things that aren't as traditional in our relationships, because that's where a lot of people are doing their personal growth around relating.
Beautiful. So many great sound bites coming from this right now. I'm going to be pulling these for promos for sure. We're going to end it here with Gabby.
Yeah, so for me, relationship anarchy is kind of more than a lifestyle. It's a philosophy, it's a political choice. Um, some of the most important aspects to me are just the fact that we create our own dynamics um, on a case by case basis. Like it's really rooted in consent this way. Um, and it's really important for us to have really good, clear communication. Um, because it brings that customization, like what do I want, what do you want, it like really has us dive deep into ourselves. um uh it doesn't put any like relationship above each other, and more so like lets us create the family that like really makes sense for us. And the chosen family aspect of it is really also important to me as someone who like is estranged from a lot of her family, not like by for a negative reason, but just by circumstance. And it's really important to me then to like create a real family so I have that feeling. Um, so it being just as valid as partnership, I really I had a platonic partner that I lived with for 3 years, and like that was maybe some of the happiest time in my life. Like I would have married them if I could have, and we really like that is was an ideal structure. But also like relationship anarchy takes a ton of courage, and I really admire that part of it. It takes a lot of self exploration because you need to communicate what you have to like, what you want and what you have to do. Um, and it like asks us to look at the world in a way that like deconstructs social norms and take risks as we create our own dynamics. So, and I also like try to emphasize like anarchist leanings in my relationship and like anarchy journey. And I will say like I'm still learning a lot about anarchy. Um, and that's like more and more important to me as I move through this journey. But it's really important to me in this to, you know, like create community and family that's like based off of mutual aid, horizontality, turning off the cop in your head, combating the negatives of our capitalist, patriarchal, and white supremacist world, especially with all the Eurocentric leanings that maybe aren't suitable to everybody. Yeah, so
Amazing. My colleagues are so smart. I just feel so blessed to be working with such brilliant people and to be on the front lines of this cultural expansion. You all inspire me so much. So now I feel like you can really see why we wanted to lay the foundation with that. It gives so much context for where we're heading into. Also, I have chills because I'm a cheese ball. We are now heading in, and we're going to make up some grounds. Don't to my team. Don't worry too much about the timeline. Daddy's got it. So I want to head into our very first mistakes were made, and we're kicking it off with the one and only Annie Undone.
Okay, so my mistake, it was the first mistake I made, trying to be equal across all my relationships. And in my early relationship anarchy practice, I had 2 committed relationships, like huge relationships. It was my queer platonic partner, Heidi, and my boyfriend, CJ. At the time, the 2 of them were living together, and I was rotating in and out of their house about 2 weeks out of every month, right? So the 3 of us were committed to this non-hierarchical model of relationship anarchy, but the dynamics were very, very different. Heidi and I had a very queer relationship. I was very care-oriented toward her, but we didn't have a romantic or sexual relationship. CJ and I had and still have a sexual and romantic relationship that on the surface appears more traditional, right? When we didn't live together, these dynamics looked, very separate. And there was no tendency towards comparison in them. But the second that they moved in together, that shifted quickly and it really surprised me. So ultimately, the manifestation of that was that Heidi was making requests for me to do the exact same things in the relationship with her that I was doing in my relationship with CJ. This for me had the effect of triggering a lot of insecurity. And when I'm insecure, I really become afraid that people are going to be mad at me, right? Or I can shift into a very people-pleasing place. Now, Heidi was the more anxiously attached party in our dynamic, and I was more avoidant. Now, I don't know if y'all have noticed that polyamorously, like you change styles as per relationship, but I do. And so that's what it was for that one. So a few things happened. I became really scared of being accused of being avoidant in my relationship to her. And I was also in fear that no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough. And so my avoidance began to kind of hold hands with my people pleasing. And the result was that I just started trying to meet her needs, right? For equality. And as I was doing that, it kind of fell outside of our pre-agreed upon relationship dynamics and agreements. And I didn't really question, was this right for me? Because I was more caught up in, does Heidi think I'm deconstructed enough? Am I being RA enough? Right. And as I struggled with meeting these new requests that she was rendering, more requests got made. So this really started reinforcing well, no matter what I do, it's never going to be enough. So that was perpetuating our cycle or our loop that we are caught in. And being inside of that loop made it really difficult for me to untangle what are my limits and what are my RA philosophies. What I didn't see through my fear was that I was being asked not only to meet the needs of the existing queer platonic partnership, but I was also being asked to meet new romantic style needs, right? For me, the queer platonic space was a niche that I was like really comfortable in. I enjoyed the relationship in. But instead of recognizing like, hey, I'm at the limit here on what I could offer, I just kept trying to meet the romantic and queer platonic needs and trying to make the relationships equal. It was really like conflict avoidance, I think. And in the end, it turned out not to be sustainable because what happened was I became burned out, resentful, and kind of angry. So here's what I learned, right? Equality and equity are not the same things, right? Equality is just giving everyone the same thing. And equity recognizes the uniqueness of each relationships and then gives it kind of what it needs. I think we all kind of know this, right? In the intellectual sense, but I think feeling into that in relationships can be a lot more nuanced and a little bit harder. I was super uncomfortable with just asserting, I don't want to provide you equality, right? Like, it's hard to tell someone something that like you think is going to hurt their feelings, or just tell someone that you don't want to do something, right? But it would have been better for me if I led from a more authentic and honest place. I mistakenly thought that if I provided equality between these relationships, that I would kind of be like off the hook and it would just feel equitable. But that never really happened. It actually had the effect of making me resentful and thereby more avoidant. So if I had it to do over, I would have started by being more honest with myself about what I didn't desire and lead from there. And to remind myself that it's okay to tell your partners, I can't make this equal, while you still remain curious about what it is they need, whether or not you can fulfill that, right? So I would say if you're a people pleaser, ask yourself, like, what do I fear will happen if I don't give this person what they want, right? The second lesson was people pleasing can lead to a lot of tension and conflict. Okay. One of the things that undermined my ability to like be authentic or equitable was the need to be liked. And so I just started to people please, right? And this was a barrier to me setting limits ultimately. So I wound up doing things that didn't feel authentic to me, and I wasn't considering myself. And I'm not saying this in a, oh, poor me, I wasn't considering myself. No, I'm saying like I was martyring myself, and that was gross, right? Like, and that was so I could stay in these relationships. And it came from a place of fear and a place of insecurity. And this was also a tendency that I had in polyamorous relationships. And I had the naivest of notions that if I wasn't having sex with more than one partner, that this would magically fade away, which it didn't and it won't. And I think it actually showed me that there really is little difference in committed partnership between sexual and non-sexual. The same exact people-pleasing problems showed up for me in both styles. Sorry to say for all of you. So I had to really mindfully address those people-pleasing tendencies. And like, spoiler, because for me, that all comes from trauma responsive fawning. So that was work I had to do in therapy with a licensed therapist. So the third lesson is hinging is not a romantic concept, especially when it comes to relationship anarchy, right? In romantic relationships, I always felt so much tension as a hinge. And the same was true here. I could do like a whole dissertation on being a hinge because it was just a position I found myself in a lot, and I never, ever envy a hinge. But there's so many skills that you need when you're in more than one deeply committed relationship. And I've often found that when it comes to hinging, I have made repeated mistakes that make both parties resentful of each other, right? And then ultimately angry with me. So trying to give everyone the same things in relationships is also a hinging mistake. So if you're going to be, whether you're a relationship anarchist or you're polyamorous or both, you have to hone those hinging skills, and good boundaries make good hinges.
Oh, she came out the dugout swinging, y'all. When I was putting the order together, I was like, wait a minute. I feel like I know who has to go first. I want to acknowledge that I'm green. We're live, baby. We're live. And if I were to fix this right now, it would kick us all out. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take a break after the fourth mistakes were made. That's in the timeline anyway. And then I will do a hard reset. And then we'll all have to log back in using the same link. It won't be a big deal. But I just want to
We
find the
don't get to do
symbolism.
Wicked the whole time? You're
So
not
I was
going to
like,
be
okay, let me find the
the whole
symbolism. I
time?
first went to Wicked and I was like, wow, okay. And then I was like, heart chakra, green. I'm in my heart space. See, I can pull meaning from anything because I'm a bullshitter. So ignore this. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is live radio, y'all. Okay, so it's giving dirty fish tank. Okay, that was not on the top five
They
that
said
I
it in a
had.
cute way. It's fine. They meant it nice.
Jeez. It's giving dirty fish tank. Dirty fish tank is actually my stage name. So anyway, we are going to head to the panelists with what landed in your world with Annie's share.
I think the hinge partner thing really resonates, and I think I'll talk about that a little bit later in mine from the other side. But yeah, I feel like a lot of us fall into that trap of like, oh, I need to do this. I need to make everybody happy. And also, I really resounded with the like, oh, if I'm not sleeping with one person, more than one person, if I'm not dating more than one person, that means I'm not doing this right. Because a lot of people, I think polyamory is, or non-monogamy and relationship anarchy is a performance. And that's
Yeah.
not true.
If I change the names of these relationships, it will magically change them enough that that will fix all of the conflicts in them, right? And like, no, you have to do actual work and actually change how you're interacting with the humans to get actual change. And I have done that how many times? Enough that I wrote a class about it, right? Like,
Oh, we've got a class plug. We've got a
oh,
class plug.
it's called it. Well, so it's a section of my one about beyond the kitchen table. There's a whole section about differentiating your relationships and how just changing the name doesn't do it. Because spoilers, did I in my 20s just change what I called things and then go, that definitely fixes all my problems, and then 2 weeks later go, oh, I fixed none of my problems, everything is terrible. Yeah, of course I did. That's what happens when you start being polyamorous when you're 18. You make all the same mistakes for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. Mistakes were made. Emphasis on plural.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Laura.
Yeah, I'm teaching that one again for Wicked Grounds in a couple months, so keep watching my link tree. The links will pop up as they go.
I have just a quick little contribution around, like, as a fellow recovering people pleaser and like big fawner, something that one of my teachers, Carmen Leilani, has like taught me is this practice around like wanting versus willing, and practicing in even just the most like mundane things in your day to day, noticing where you're in wanting versus where you're in willing, and that those are different things. And when you're in willing, to ask yourself, can I give this with a full heart? And if the answer is no, then it's probably actually a no, right? And and the wanting is like about you, right? Your desires. The willing is like a relational, like, I love you and I'm willing to do this for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just something to chew on.
And you're so much less likely, if you're not pushing yourself into willing all the time, to get into a corner where you feel like you're enduring parts of the relationship, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have any questions from the audience on this one? This is a good time. Remember, you can drop your questions in the chat at any time if you think of one later. What if the willing is around necessary compromise? What if the willing is around necessary compromise? Any panelist can jump in on this.
I think that we get confused in like the concepts between like compromising and I think this is kind of like the kernel, like the center kernel of this, right? Like the requests that my partner were making of me, they were reasonable. They were reasonable things to want, right? And so I felt like, yeah, like it's reasonable for you to want to like go on these dates with me, right? So like I should just give that to you because it's reasonable, right? And compromise on this point. But I think that we have to also assess like how we're feeling about it, right? Like just because something's reasonable or because you're striking a compromise doesn't mean it's the right fit for you. And one of the guiding questions that I use like in that direction a little bit is, do I want this or do I think I should want this? Because I think we often get in this space where it's like, we think that we should want these things because we're partnered or because it's, you know, we're RA or in this thing. There are reasonable compromises to be made, but when we're kind of getting into those dynamics, what feels right and what works and where we should compromise is very nuanced, and you get to decide that for yourself.
Well, and also like the relationship anarchy manifesto, which is not like a Bible or anything, but it's got good ideas for some things. Has a section about compromise that says love is not more real when people compromise for each other because it's part of what's expected. And rather than looking for compromises in every situation, let your loved ones choose paths that keep their integrity intact without letting this mean a crisis for your relationship. So, like, sometimes there are things that just are outside of your boundaries that you don't want to do. And if this isn't a thing that's outside of your boundaries, it's just something that's a little uncomfortable. You can certainly choose to compromise in a given situation. But if you're choosing to compromise over and over and over again, and it's causing a resentful dynamic in your relationship, that's something to look at. Whereas if it's something that's a small compromise, you can make it. But if it's small compromises that are always one-sided, that's a dynamic to look at, right? And figuring out where the actual relationship that's within all of the humans involved or both of the humans involved's boundaries is maybe the healthier way to look at constructing the relationship than one made entirely out of compromises, even though one made out of compromises is perhaps more traditional.
So good. That was so rich. Annie, I feel like you said in one sentence what the entire RA journey is for me personally, which is this, do I want this because it's a good fit for me or because I think I should want it? That is relationship anarchy. Yeah.
I think it's part of like too is like relationship anarchy is deceptively simple, right? Like there's a lot of simplicity, even like as Laura's talking about, compromise and integrity and those things. Like it comes down to these very simple points, and like to internalize those in really practical and pragmatic ways, it is the journey, right? Like we're not really ever going to get to an end point on that. We're just going to keep deconstructing it down to its most deep and simple form.
Amazing. What way to kick us off, Annie. You crushed that. We are gonna make up some grounds here and head on to mistake number 2. Remember, you can ask, even if you think of a question later, we have Q&A throughout this whole thing. So feel free to put it in the chat at any time. One of the panelists might even be able to answer you in the chat. So don't hesitate on that. We are heading to mistake number 2 with Laura Boyle.
The way I phrase this is sort of a vague statement of the concept that I learned rather than of the mistake, I guess. The mistake is feeling that wanting stability is incompatible with relationship anarchy, which I think is something that a lot of us feel at different points in non-monogamy journeys or in deconstruction journeys or in examining what we want out of relationships, right? And for me, this is something that comes up cyclically. And so it may have a less satisfying conclusion for you than some of the other lessons that people are going to share here today. Because part of the lesson that I have learned out of this is that actually I'm not bad at this if sometimes I'm having a really hard time about this and sometimes I worry about these things cyclically. It's okay to, when you're living non-normatively, notice the norms and go, oh, actually, these things do make my life a little harder and it is a little uncomfortable, right? But just sort of generally, it can sometimes feel when, despite like being generally kind of deconstructed from the notion of the relationship escalator and that all of your relationships should do this like first comes love, then comes marriage order, that the things that you're asking for might be too much for your partners, especially if you're engaging in these non-traditional, already deconstructed relationships. And maybe not everybody is somebody like me who's a little bit too loud and I've been told they were too much a lot of their childhood and all of these things, right? Maybe that's a little bit of the ADHD Leo situation that I've got going on. But here on a panel of ADHD Leos, I think you all understand me. I've got a lot of shadow around being too much, and especially around being too much in relationship. And so I worry sometimes about expressing my needs fully, or expressing that I might want more, or that I might want an escalation, even though we're in this like explicitly we're not doing all of the steps in an order kind of relationship. And so periodically I have what I now jokingly call the biannual crash out, where I absolutely lose my mind over something relatively small. Something that probably isn't worth a full, now I will lose my mind and require the reassurance of every partner I have. That actually everything in our relationships is good. That we don't need to reorganize the whole world, and that I don't need to break up with everyone and move across the country to find a new life where things will be stable and good. And that, in fact, that would cause more instability, right? I had the last one in the end of January, beginning of February. It was moderately ugly. But despite this, I am not actually bad at non-monogamy, right? One of my relationships is 10 years long, or it will be 10 years long in January. Been together a good long time. We don't live together. We're not planning to live together. We have a wonderful, loving relationship where we support each other through all of our big business endeavors. We drive across the country to do stupid vacations. All the things one would expect. But part of the thing of having long-term relationships in this sort of deconstructed framework is that you have to build new markers for stability. You have to pick things like the things I just said. I guess time is a pretty traditional one, but you pick the vacation, or you pick actually showing up for date night, or you decide that a particular holiday is your holiday. And you focus on those things as markers of for us, this is stability. For us, it's that we celebrate the elopement of Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning as our silly additional anniversary holiday, arbitrary versary event, right? Because we're not doing the yes, we're going to do something that everyone will come out and have a party for us for. We have to do the thing together among ourselves. And to do that, you have to acknowledge your wants and needs openly. And if you're me and you intellectualize things until you have a crash out, that may mean that periodically you have to have a crash out to do it. If you're a little bit more mature than me, you can probably just have periodic hard conversations about it.
I did not mean to unmute and then laugh that hard.
Sometimes we need to bug out.
But
Yep.
I'm almost 38 years old and I still need to have the periodic crash out about it, so I support all of you in expressing your relationships however you need to, right? Having the actual emotions expressed is the part that's actually important. Equally when I do it through the total freak out as when my partner, who is a person who has all water and earth placements, comes to me for very calm conversations about the things that he thinks maybe need addressing, right? And I understand that astrology may not be the way you personally see the world, so you think that my referencing that is not as comfortable or copacetic, but he's just a calmer and more even-keeled person. So he shows up with the things in that reference. Whereas me and my girlfriend periodically call each other and just go, the entire world is burning. Can I tell you why we need to burn it all down? And then the other one goes, nothing is burning. It's okay. I'm going to bring soup over.
It takes a village.
And we're going to hang out and we're going to have soup and we're going to talk about why each thing is burning and then why it turns out it's actually not. And then we're going to be okay at the end.
God
right?
Is that
and
an
the
earth
whole
sign?
polycule figures it out by the end. And so that's the sort of thing I've learned over the years, is that it's okay to have the actual meltdown so long as you have people around you to support it. It doesn't need to be your partners. I have metas who are equally supportive. I also have metas who I absolutely would not go to mid-crash out. Please know who your people are. Identify them. These are my bits of advice for things that I've learned that hopefully you can learn through slightly less pain.
I love this. God, isn't it so powerful to see your favorite educators? These are people with huge followings online telling you that they're human. Laura, you have a really nice comment from Kennedy in the chat if you want to go look at it. And right
I
now I'm
will
going
go
to take
look
it
at
to
it
the
while you
panelists, but we're
guys
going to make up a
say
little
what
bit of
you
time
think you
here.
learned or didn't.
So
But
panelists,
yeah, you don't need a whole escalator. It's just figure out the thing you actually want that feels good to you. Stability looks totally different to different people, right? So is it that you want your date night to be a little more regular, or is it that you want a particular holiday that feels like yours, or that you want to agree you're going on vacation once every 18 months, right? Like, what's in your budget and the shape of your lives that feels reasonable? As somebody who has no money, me and my partner go, we'd like to try to get away once every 18 months or so, but mostly that involves driving to somewhere where we know people who will let us stay with them. Right? It's a different vibe.
let's kick it to the panel. What's landing in your world, guys?
I'll start. This just brought up this conversation I recently had with my partner where he said, for me in this relationship, I'm going to need you to agree to like have no chaos and no explosions. And I just turned to him and said, then I think you should be single.
Yes.
And he looked at me and I was like, no, like there's absolutely no way for me to agree to that because like I'm going to express my emotions and I'm going to be angry and I'm not afraid of you. I was like, you can be angry and I'm not afraid of you. And I just feel like that ability to express emotion, that's the stability.
Right. I'm
Right.
in a
And
safe
that's,
relationship where I can express my emotions now.
yeah. And I think also like if we agree to not have chaos and not have explosions, you know what we're guaranteed to get? Chaos and explosions because we're just going to be bottling that up. Right. And so I think it's like interesting how we should even examine in terms of our relationship to RA, what is stability for you? Because to me, it's all emotional.
I want to jump in just saying crashing out is okay. This is something I'm learning because like I'm very afraid of my anger. Um, like I think if you're not being an asshole, if you're not name calling, if you're not abusive, like so long as you're doing those things, it's okay to freak out, especially if you can take accountability for any of the like negative things you might have said. Um, because sometimes we just need to cry, we need to scream, we need to like figure it out. And sometimes, honestly, like people don't realize how intensely we feel sometimes until you express it. But yeah, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to freak out. Like, often these things are secondary emotions and like there's something behind them.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Let's see, let's look at this. Yes, with stability, knowing my feelings and emotions will be taken into consideration as much as your other partners. Yes. Since we don't have any questions in the chat, now would be a really great time to make up some of that
Yeah,
timeline.
please
So
move
we're going to
forward.
head on to mistake number 3, which is Che Che. And I'm so excited to see Che Che step into their teacher mode.
All right. Hi. Okay. So, this mistake that I've made many times is abundance of love and freedom does not equal overriding my own personal limits. Uh, I love humans. I get so excited to connect with people. There are so many incredible beings in the world, and my body and nervous system can only hold and tend to so many relationships at once. And this is like a really hard reality for me. Like I have had a lot of denial about it for a long time. And I'm still working to like really be honest. I know we were talking in the chat, like capacity is a really complex thing and it can be really hard to like parse out, especially because it's constantly moving and changing, right? So when I first began practicing relationship anarchy, I was really like saying yes to so many things and so many connections as like proof of my openness and freedom. And I learned the hard way that limits and boundaries are what make connections sustainable. And they create the conditions for connection, to like breathe and not burn out. I used to think that if I was like quote unquote truly liberated, that I would just have this like immense, huge capacity to hold connection. And so I've really had to do a lot of internal unlearning and be in relationship with my limits. These are not flaws, these make me human. Respecting my limits is an act of devotion to the relationships that deserve my full presence, not my constant exhaustion. And there's many lessons that have come from this mistake. I'll talk about a few. One being, saying no can be an erotic act. There's something sensual about choosing myself and letting my no be as sacred as my yes. I've realized that honoring my boundaries doesn't dampen desire. It strengthens it, and it invites my lovers and friends and community into like deeper, clear intimacy. Another lesson is abundance is not about quantity, it's about depth. It's not about how many people I can hold or how much energy I can give. It's about the quality of attention in each connection. It's can I bring my full presence and not just be like tired and stretched thin all the time. And another lesson is that overriding my limits is a trauma response. When I really dig deeper and through the help of the village and my therapist, can see these like old survival patterns of people pleasing, fawning, wanting to be wanting to like be lovable. Like this will make me more lovable somehow if I don't have needs or limits. And in a world that profits off my overextension emotionally, socially, in all the ways, I've been in this ongoing practice of like my limits are beautiful, radical, important, needed. Yeah. And I'll also add that the web grows stronger when I tend to my own needs. When I care for my limits, I care for the entire ecosystem. And it brings like more integrity collectively, right, into this like network that I am watering and building. I'll pause there.
Wow, so much profound like spiritual truth with what you're saying. In addition to like functional relationship anarchy wisdom. I would love to fire back to the panel here for what's landing in y'all's world with this. And also feel free to put any questions around this mistake or even just commentary on what landed for you, dear audience.
I think for me, this brought up some of the work I'm doing with my intergenerational living situation, right? Because that's been like a huge teacher for me with building limits in my familial relationships, which is the place where they originated, right? And making everyone else comfortable, instead of just saying, you hurt my feelings, that wasn't okay, I didn't like that. I need to be alone, whatever it is, right? Which I think it's like fairly unique. I've not met anyone maybe outside of Laura that does relationship anarchy work with their family of origin. And, my mom and I talk a lot about, relationship anarchy and how to create secure attachment between ourselves, which is like feels very radical to me. I don't think that most people are having those conversations while living with their parents again. And so, yeah, I think for me, I've had to kind of go back and assess where's the limits and also just admit where I'm pretty bad at it.
I feel like just knowing our scope is like one of the wisest things we can do for our community. It's just like, here's where I am. Here's where I am. Just so you know.
Well, and also being gentle with each other when we fuck it up, right? And with ourselves. Because so much of this is a trial and error process of learning how to respect our limits and learning how to recognize our limits before we're over them. Because so much of this process for me, as I was learning to do it, which I'm still, it's a continuous practice, but so much of it was recognizing that I was near a limit before I was so far over it that I was burning myself out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, figuring out what the tells were before I got there so that I could start telling people no before I was already all the way through and resenting them for having let me get there. Because if I didn't know, how did they know? Right? These are the sort of communication things where we have to learn these things about ourselves to then be able to tell people so that we can have the open and honest communication we want with one another.
Yeah, I feel like talking about learning the body cues, it's one of the reasons I follow Che Che, because they are so fucking embodied. I don't know if I've ever seen a more embodied person.
Well, and it was part of why Che's definition of relationship anarchy as a somatic practice was really resonant for me, even though I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I think because I have so much struggle with connecting to bodily cues, like that's so much of what I'm doing in therapy because I'm not good at it, that it resonated with me as I'm like, oh, this is another way I can frame this for myself as I work on it.
Yeah. I went to a sapphic sex party once, hosted by Dr. Hazel Grace, and it was like a 2-hour workshop before the sex party could get started, which I was like, that's so extreme. And then we went through it and I was like, oh, and it was all about learning to somatically understand in the sex party space whether you're a yes or a no to a request. And I was like, this just changed my life, actually. Really, really powerful stuff. And Che has a bunch of resources of somatic shit that they teach to the world. God bless you. Okay, we are cruising now, y'all. We're gonna head to mistake number 4, and then we're going to take a brief break in which I will come back, not green. So without further ado, we've got Annie's second mistake.
Yeah, which is using tailor-made relationships as an excuse to hang on to bad or soured relationships. So I struggle to let relationships go, like full stop. But in bad relationships, I've also run into points where I notice I'm participating in patterns that are triggering things in me or the other person, but I'm just very stubborn about wanting to still stay in the relationship. And this is like for a lot of reasons, right? Like either the sex is great or we've got longevity and history, or just like I like the person, right? And for me, when I'm in a place of fear, I'm always worried that there's never going to be another dynamic like this. There's never going to be another friendship like this, or chemistry like that again. So like ending those relationships brings up that insecurity for me in like a variety of ways. So I have classically, very mistakenly, felt better walking away when I've exhausted all the other options that are on the table, right? And just let the relationship get so bad that then I don't have to feel bad when I walk away, right? So in that vein, I have de-escalated from romantic partners to queer platonic partners to friendship in an effort to maintain a relationship that just should have fucking been a breakup, right? So going back to my dynamic with Heidi, like I loved her a lot, right? I wanted to hang on to this relationship even when I knew that I didn't have the capacity to meet her desires or needs. And I felt like, oh, hey, you know, like we're relationship anarchists, so we can just like rework this, make it different, right? And that'll help us break these cycles and patterns. But that was never true. So in transitioning from like romantic and sexual partners to queer platonic partners to friends to eventually going no contact with one another, we kept trying to reframe the relationship through an anarchist lens, reinvent it, when in reality, there is no structural cure for incompatibility and deep disagreement on values, right? So the things that triggered us in our relationship, they followed us from style to style, despite our best efforts to like subvert it by changing the nature of the relationships. I hid behind relationship anarchy to justify her continued presence in my life. And I think she did the same thing, right? So here's what I learned. The first was don't de-escalate a relationship in the hopes that you will break a bad or toxic cycle, because you won't. Obviously, like no matter what we did structurally, Heidi always wanted more from the relationships than I did in terms of closeness. But I want to also reframe this from her perspective, because I don't think she's not here. So that's not entirely fair, right? She might say, no matter how much I shrank my needs, Annie was never willing to meet them, right? So there's two sides to that. I think we both had that kind of similar gripe, no matter what the structure was. Of course, there were times, weeks, months, where we didn't have that argument. But in the end, it always came back up, right? So if you are considering a de-escalation or a structural change in a relationship that feels bad or has soured, I want you to remember that there is a big difference between de-escalating a relationship in a way that naturally occurs and a de-escalation because the relationship is not working, right? So honestly, examine your motivations for de-escalation and structural changes and interrogate whether or not they're even realistic. The second lesson is that sometimes changing structure is just delaying the inevitable, right? And I've done this like in a lot of relationships, not just the one I referenced, right? Because, you know, holding on is a whole thing for me. And to be honest, that was probably one of the things motivating me into relationship anarchy, right? It was like, how do I honor my needs instead of just hanging on to shit? But it's still hard for me to end relationships, even when I know that that's what I need. So sometimes I've taken this route of de-escalation to just make something a really long goodbye, because ending relationships is just painful. But it does, in the end, increase the tension. And again, it comes from a very scared place. It comes from attachment wounds. It comes from people pleasing. It comes because I fear being alone, or I fear being disliked, or I just fear like being the bad guy, right? But another fear I have, and the reason I sometimes change these structures, is because I fear not trying hard enough in the relationship, even though I have an inner knowing. So the question to ask yourself is, and this is something I bring up in peer supports a lot to people, is I ask them, what decision has your body made that your mind is still catching up to? And a lot of times when I ask that question, people are so disappointed because they kind of know, right? So ask yourself that question if you're going to make a shift in relationship structure. And lesson number 3, being a relationship anarchist doesn't mean you have to keep someone in your life. It seems really obvious on the surface, but you know, I talk about this in polyamory too, but I think it's even murkier in relationship anarchy, because we're releasing a lot of our attachments to the way that we think that things ought to be. We have a lot of creative solutions and many ways of doing relationships, but it doesn't mean it's appropriate or desirable 100% of the time to keep someone in your life. You might genuinely like someone, but that still doesn't mean that they're a good or uplifting presence in your life. It's taken me 5 failed de-escalations to learn this. I have one successful de-escalation that is a caring relationship, but extremely distanced, right? And I just want to remind everyone, breaking up is a valid choice. Like sometimes you just need to move on. And I think it's really hard to evaluate because, I mean, I've done an entire workshop on this about should you break up or de-escalate with Leanne Yao, right? But breaking up doesn't mean that anyone's a bad person. It just means you aren't right for each other and you don't want to continue sharing your life or sharing your space or even a friendship. And it doesn't make you a bad relationship anarchist. Relationship anarchists have breakups too.
Oh, we can't hear you, Jess.
Oh my God. Thank you. I was just doting on Annie. I was like, Annie, oh my God, that was so good. Like so many bars and like truth bombs in what you said. And I really appreciate the level of vulnerability you went to with that and the amount of self-reflection you carried into that mistake to bring it to us today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take it to the panel for just a minute or two here for some reflections.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. Like that just was like I needed that. And it reminded me of this conversation I was having with my dear love Tuck Malloy. I'm sure y'all know Tuck. And I was like going through a similar, yeah, just like really struggling in this discernment process of like whether to end a connection. And they just like very calmly asked me, they were like, do you believe that relationships have a beginning, middle, and end? And I was like, oh. It was such a like big question for me to sit with, and I'm still sitting with it. And it showed me how much resistance, avoidance, shame I have around ending relationships and like admitting and acknowledging that they end, right? In all different ways. So just wanted to share that.
Wow. I'm going to have to message Tuck. Be like, just so you know, you made waves today. Oh,
Yes.
sorry if you can hear my children. Any other panelists before we jump to Q&A? Susan had a great. Would you talk more about queer platonic relationships and what those look like? How are those different from deep friendships? And this can be any panel.
I would be happy to talk about my platonic partner. Their name is Erin. We lived together for like 3 years when I was living in New Jersey, going throughout college. And the relationship, it was like a relationship. We initially started hanging out. We tried to have sex. We mistook the intimacy for, we mistook emotional intimacy for sexual and romantic intimacy because the feeling was so deep. So when we lived together, like that was my wife. We didn't have sex. We did have sexual and romantic partners outside of each other. We didn't share a bed, but we would cook for each other in the morning. We would, share groceries. I would, cover her rent when she couldn't pay for it. Like, we were foundational supports. Like, I think for a while she was my emergency contact. So I think those relationships can be more expansive even without cohabitation. I think it's just that deep love where it feels like a relationship almost, like what we kind of feel as a romantic relationship, and what we're told is a romantic relationship. Um, but you necessarily like don't have sex or you don't maybe even feel those romantic things. You just have this deep, deep intimacy. That's how it manifests for me, at least.
This is like also a really perennial question that we get. And so like one of the things I've talked a fair amount about queer platonic relationships for me, and people define them all types of ways. But one of the things that I like to bring to people's attention when we talk about queer platonic relationships, right, is that in the non-monogamous space in particular, we work to really understand and normalize like sex without romance or love, right? And this is love and sometimes even romance without sex, right? So if we think about it in terms of these are all the same types of love things that you would do for people just without sex, I think that's really a good way for people to be able to understand or frame it for themselves, in contrast to this other concept that we've more normalized for ourselves in society.
The parallel that I always use is the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls are a queer platonic household. Like, so my girlfriend and two people who are within my polycule, but like you gotta degrees of Kevin Bacon out, like 5 degrees, so there's not a word for that, are all extremely close to each other and future planning to like move in together, are super close, are functionally queer platonic partners. They are daily group chat, share food with one another, like have meal exchange, do everything together level people who are like planning for their retirements together, looking at getting on a mortgage together level people, but they don't have a relationship title for one another because they're all in other romantic and sexual relationships and already have enough trouble explaining those to people. Right? Like, because they're all non-monogamous. They've all got their own families who have their own issues with understanding these things. They don't want to, on top of that, go, oh yeah, and Liz and Caitlin are my people and we're going to retire together because our romantic partnerships are great, but that's not on the escalator. Why bother? My escalator is with them. Right? So it's building your own pattern and family and support.
I love that. Not to be that person, but I always say when people ask me the difference between deep friendships and queer platonic relationships, is my answer is vibes. Just vibes. Like, it's it can't be captured in words sometimes. Although I think the panel just did an actually really brilliant job capturing it into words. But I just, I always tell people I see like this neon hotel sign in my head, uh, and I'll ask it questions, and it'll give me like blink yes or no, and it'll be like, is this a deep friendship or queer platonic? And it'll be like, yes, queer platonic, and I'm like, I don't know, it's vibes. It's vibes. And I also think like I did get to the point where I realized it didn't matter, because what is the difference? People were like, well, that's not a queer platonic, that's just a deep friendship. Like, yeah, okay. Like at some point you erase all the borders enough through the practice of relationship anarchy, and it's all the same. We're all just friends. We're all just fucking friends. Final thoughts here before we head to break. And I have my glow up. Oh, somebody, Susan says, you've given me a name for a relationship I've wanted to add for several years. Isn't that delicious? And this is why I love labels. I'm just not attached to them, but I love a label giving you an epiphany and you're like, oh my God. And this is the beauty of relationship anarchy. Yes, because we're like, oh, we can actually just do whatever we want. What works for us. Y'all, we have made up the time. I know Dana's over there taking deep breaths right now. This is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I can hear that my husband is in need help regulating my children. So over here on our timeline, we have a break going until we are perfectly on time. Oh my God. Until 31 after the hour, wherever you are in the world right now. Here is what's going to happen though. I am going to hit stop on the live stream so that I can reset my camera. That will kick our audience out, but you can use the same link to join back in. We will, all of our panelists you'll stay in the studio, but I believe I will go out and come back in. And then at 31 after the hour, let's say 32, so we get an actual 5-minute break here. Go pee, take a hit of your weed pen, get some coffee, and come back at 32 after the hour. Use the same link that you used to get in to come back. And you will see the live stream start again at 32 after, and I will be degranified. All right, we'll see you soon. Oh, there we go. There we go. Riverside is opening other tabs.
Y'all can hear me fine, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
back.
We're all back.
Oh, man, Hank has entered the room. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone made
Hello.
it back in time. My 4-year-old is dressed as Blippi and living his best life. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God. Look at those. Oh wow. There's so much to like about it.
I know, he's so cute. He used to refuse to wear costumes before we fixed his airway, so it makes me emotional. Okay, everybody, we are back. I also want to acknowledge once again that Riverside changed the Riverside is growing really, really fast. It's actually an amazing app, but because of that, they are constantly updating the UX and UI, and so the share screen stuff is all different, and that's why panel 1 we had shit locked down. But that's on me for not staying up to date on all of the updates. So without further ado, I'm out of breath. It's so embarrassing.
Woosah.
But my children are gone. They are out of the house. God bless. We are finally heading to Gabrielle Smith's first mistake. She hasn't made a mistake yet.
The first mistake in my life because I'm perfect.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised, Queen. I would not be surprised.
Yes, my friends make fun of me because I'm like, it's never me. I'm never the issue. Which honestly lies into this, believing it's my sole responsibility to do all the work to better myself in a relationship, right? I think first I should acknowledge, like, this might not 100% be a relationship anarchy thing. Like, I'm a femme who has mostly dated men and masculine people. And I think many of us are familiar with the fact that femmes tend to do more emotional labor in the relationship. Really, just people who are like non-cis men tend to do more emotional labor in relationships. Oh, I never put my timer on. Eek. Sorry. But, because relationship anarchy emphasizes autonomy and free association, a lot of folks mistakenly interpret autonomy and free association as like rampant individualism. And I've kind of fallen into that on the other side, where it's not like, whoa, you can everything is your fault. Like, sorry. A lot of people like push away and they're like, these are my boundaries, they're unmovable, XYZ. And I'm someone that's like, okay, I'm going to receive these boundaries, I'm going to see how I can work around them. And ultimately feeling like it's my job to kind of compromise and compromise and compromise because these are customizable relationships. And a lot of people forget that compromise is collaborative. My view in a lot of relationships was ultimately that it is my responsibility to better myself in the relationship. And I'm really comfortable in this space. The best way to say it is because of my disabilities. A lot of people who have bipolar type 2 don't get a diagnosis for about 10 to 12 years because it can look like either just major depression or ADHD. And I got diagnosed in like 3 years, from like the beginning of my treatment, because I'm really, really aggressively like, let's solve this problem. I get too anxious if there are problems floating around, like we can just deal with it. Yeah, and a good thing about this habit is that I'm really self-aware in relationships. I'm always communicative and ready to be wrong because I'm like, all right, let me fix this. This is probably like an ADHD, like my little dash of autism thing. But if you're working with somebody who isn't committed to that, it's really easy to think you're the problem. And I'll just go into like in the past, I was dating someone who wasn't committed and wasn't really ready to do that work on themselves. You know, they were a people pleaser. And as someone who is not afraid to ask for what I want, we created this negative cycle of fear that turned into a lot of resentment on both sides. You know, he would resent me for asking for things because he didn't know how to say no and he felt like he had to do it. So once like, you know, therapy became involved with both people, um, it kind of became like this boundary clash. Uh, you know, he kind of wished that I was more compersive, where I usually find myself at ambivalent about my partner's other relationships. Like I don't really care about them unless like I have a connection with both people. Um, and like, you know, he didn't want me to feel insecure about new relationships. They kind of wished that my security request didn't exist. So I was left to feel guilty about my insecurities, which ultimately bloomed from lack of relationship security. And I worked on things over and over again. And my option was to either compromise my own needs or break up. I felt like compromising my own needs or shrinking my own needs were one of those things that could really just save the relationship. Like I knew this person could be the person I wanted them to be, but at the end of the day, they weren't ready to be the person for me. All of that being said, you don't have to make yourself small. Like sometimes you just need to break up, like Annie said. Sometimes you need the relationship to end. And I think a lot of us are like, okay, we can compromise. Like, I'm not going to need to get everything from one person. Like, if this person can't give me this thing, even though they are the person I spend most of my time with, like, I can always get that somewhere else. I started dating one of my partners, and he gave me a lot of my emotional needs, a lot of my social needs, and stuff. Um, but yeah, we don't have to settle for incompatibilities. We don't have to solve them. Relationship anarchy doesn't mean that you have to become what somebody else wants you to be. It means that you have to like understand your needs and see if they work with other people. Like come to the table. Um, yeah. Sometimes you're just not meant to be with somebody. Sometimes you just need to break up, and that's all right. That doesn't mean that you're invalid in that. Just not every relationship needs to be saved.
Not every relationship needs to be saved. And with that, we're going to take it to the panel. Panelists, what has landed in your world with this one?
Something that jumped out for me when you were talking about jealousy, as I wrote down, and I'm probably going to make into a piece of content, is people who see jealousy as a red flag are a red flag.
Yes, I think some people want it to just be easy, and relationships aren't easy, and jealousy is a secondary emotion,
Yeah, like,
you know?
and I think, and it like underlies like something about relationship anarchy in particular. I think that there's like this, we're autonomous, well, we're free. So like you can't be jealous. And I'm not going to hold your hand with that. Like every day of the week, fuck that. Like, no. And I say this as like a top tier jealous person of like literally everything. Like I have a piece of content from way back where I said, I am jealous of the wind blowing if it touches your face and I don't. I don't care.
It's beautiful, artful, you know? Jess, you're muted.
Wow. Are there any questions from the audience? You can put it in the chat as the panel continues to reflect on this one from Gabrielle. Oh, Laura, are you trying to talk, Laura?
You hear me?
Oh, we couldn't.
Now we can.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
weird.
I didn't change anything. It just decided to work. Cool. But so I resonated with a lot of what you were saying, Gabby, but especially the bit at the top of it where you were like, I don't know if this is a relationship anarchy thing or just a relationship thing, but I feel like that's true for almost all of the things that we're all sharing today, right? Like relationship anarchy is not some rarefied air of relationships. These are all just relationships we're having. And I think that that's an important note to put at the top of this, especially for all of the people who, as Annie noted, come into these things and go, oh, I'm a relationship anarchist, so all of these special rules should apply to these relationships. No, they absolutely should not. We are humans in relationship and community with one another. We're going to continue relating as humans, and no relationship libertarian fuckboy is going to tell me otherwise.
Yes, relationship libertarians.
Fuckboy is my new favorite read.
It's gonna be my new like Instagram account name.
Yeah, someone make a meme.
Somebody make a parody Instagram account, please. We will blow it up. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I don't have the energy, but somebody who has more than me.
Oh God, that's so what that is. What are you crocheting also?
Oh, I'm knitting a sock. I just turned the heel.
So cute.
It's in like a unicorn barf color that my daughter picked.
Incredible.
Christmas is less than 100 days away. Everyone who hand makes their Christmas be working all the time. I gave this an hour and a half without something in my hands. That's about as much time in a day as I'm allowed to not be working on things.
We love the neurodivergent multitasking. Elle's asking how to assess whether / how to communicate to a partner that the emotional labor is feeling one-sided and that they might want to consider it before just ending things. Gabby, do you want to start with this?
I think at one point I started just sending my partner videos, and I was like, this might be something that you want to dive into. That was like the gentle way of doing it. Um, I had suggested reading. Reading wasn't really, videos, little TikToks were the easiest thing for them. So that's like maybe step one in terms of being like, hey, I need some help. And then honestly, like being like, hey, I need some help. Like we're hitting a wall and like this relationship is both of us. Um, and I'm doing so much work to either keep it going apart. I don't want to build resentment. Resentment it's like a cancer and the way it spreads through your body. And the longer it goes on, the longer it's not addressed, I think it's one of the hardest things to let go. So I think going into that, like being like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like I feel statements, not you are not doing enough, is really a good way to lead into it. And you like, and also you can like add that there is a consequence to not doing this, which is like breaking up. And it's like, do we want to try these things or should we change our relationship or should we set like, understand that, we have moved through this path in life and, it's time to move on to a different chapter.
And if it's a relationship where you actually are comfortable with less connection to them or less space, like them taking up less space in your life, or where you feel like you're capable of doing that and not putting all that labor in, going, hey, I've been putting in a ton of work toward this. If I don't feel like you're being reciprocal in that within X time frame, 3 months, whatever the hell it is, then I'm going to have fewer date nights with you or whatever. Set a boundary like that and see how they respond,
Yeah.
right? Because giving them the space to step up can be important because some people will step up if given an actual consequence. And some people will show you exactly who they are if given that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I always frame this in terms of like, I need this thing. You may or may not be able to give it to me, but that doesn't mean I don't deserve it.
Nice. Really nice.
Fairly new, but
I'm gonna steal it. I deserve this.
Yeah. Because I think especially as a femme, just shrinking my needs is like second nature to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, if you can't give that, and that's like my daddy issues, right? My daddy gave me the love of potential that is never realized. And like, I want men to prove me wrong, right? But I have to be really transparent about what I think I deserve in that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a root here of like that we need to really actually believe that our needs matter, which like y'all are sharing, like if we've been conditioned to not believe that, that's really yeah, it's a big like that's a big process.
And all of the shadow work you have to do
Yeah.
as you're starting to reprogram the fact that your needs matter. I want to address this
Mm-hmm.
question here from Kennedy. This may be slightly off topic, but I have a question about intersectionality of race and poly/non-monogamic relationships as a Black femme. I feel sometimes there's another layer of things to consider and perceived internalized racism from connections. And I know I have seen you talk about this, Gabby.
Yes, yes. Most of my partners have been white men. It's a numbers game. Um, and I think one of the ways we were clashing, and this is like tied to my politics, is there's like 13 tenets of white supremacy, and a lot of conflict in like was based around that. So like just tenets of white supremacy that came up was like um, quantity over quality, defensiveness, the right to comfort. I'm trying to think what else. Um, and stuff like that. So open conflict was fearful. Open conflict was met with certain things. And I think culturally, most people of like the global majority, most people of color, um, really are more used to combating that stuff head to head. Uh, because like the community comes first, not like the individual. Whereas Eurocentricity really does value the individual versus the community. So it's more like if you're a disruption to the community in like non-Eurocentric cultures, especially Afrocentric cultures, you are the issue as opposed to keeping order and control. All that being said is, I think yeah, that's why like Black femmes often in relationships, especially with people who aren't sharing their identities, are going to struggle a bit more. And also the internalized racism aspect of it. You know, um, I think I've done a lot of work on that, but I definitely have maybe tolerated some microaggressions or, tried to work through issues that I just ultimately had to put to bed because my partner wasn't coming to the table with me.
Thank you for that question and thank you for that answer,
It's a
Gabrielle.
great question.
We are going to move on to mistake number 6. This is back to Laura over here. Oh, Laura, we can't hear you. What is that's so weird that it's doing that. We can hear you now. It just like takes a
Okay,
minute to on ramp.
that's so weird. But maybe it's because I had to plug in my phone to make sure that I had battery for the whole 3 hours. Who
Oh,
knows? But so my other mistake that I'm going to share is about experiencing friendship NRE in a sort of unboundaried way, which I also sort of phrased it as going too hard early in friendships, which this sort of fits in with the thing we were talking about earlier about feeling like being too much, right? And how that's not necessarily always a real thing, but it's certainly an experienced thing or a felt thing. But also, I do actually legitimately go extremely hard in new friendships in a like hormonal chemical NRE driven kind of way, where in a very before I had words for being RA way, my friendships were very expansive and new friends were my new favorite thing of the world, and I would spend all of my time with this new person, and I would want to figure out everything that made them tick and tell them everything about me and spend all of our time together for some period of time until either the rose-colored glasses came off because some incident occurred that showed that actually our values weren't that well aligned, or much as with regular NRE, right? Or until something came up with real life and work and whatever, where we had to spend some time apart. And I got to spend some time reflecting on what this early period had actually been like. And I was like, oh, wait, actually, only these bits were really compatible and good. Let me think about what I actually want out of this relationship. And so, being in a phase of my life now where between my kids, my custody schedule, my work, and my relationships, I have less time to devote to sort of go so hard on my friend NRE, has caused me to be a lot more deliberate. And like, yes, I probably still text people too much, and I probably still get a little bit into the friend limerence, and I probably am still a little too intense and scare some people away because, hello, I'm still myself. But it's a lot more deliberate and involves a lot more like checking where their boundaries are and are they actually comfortable with how hard I'm trying to go, and are they not just saying yes to an invitation out of like feeling like that's how it maybe should go. Because in college and in my early 20s, there was some extent of like, oh, well, we're just going to be friends now, and you know a lot of people and you're very social. So, of course, I'll say yes to some invitations and I'll go all around town with you. That seems right and good, right? And now I realize that might have been kind of coercive at the time. It might have sort of been a little bit of a problem that I was dragging them through a theater kid scene and around parties with my friend the recreational pharmacist, right? Like, these are not always the right move. Maybe. And maybe that's why a bunch of these things blew up like 3 months in, when we mutually realized that these were not actually the future besties of our lives. But some of them were the future besties of our lives. And 10 and 15 years later, we're still really close. And like, things are like close enough that I flew to London to stay with one of them last year, right? Somebody who I met and was like, ah, yes, we in a whirlwind will spend 5 days a week with one another for a month, the month we met. Yeah? And 15 years later, we're still close. And for a brief time in the middle, we were metas, right? Like, these sorts of connections do sometimes do beautiful things, but they also do kind of wild things. So the things that I've learned are being more intentional, actually talking about what I want out of a connection, trying to figure out, do I think I have enough values-wise in common with people that I want to be more than party friends or like acquaintances with them within a few conversations, as opposed to like, oh, let's spend a ton of time together before we get to any of those conversations. And like leading with my values enough that people have some idea. Because if I'm leading with, I'm a fun party time, it's a lot easier for people to have a very mistaken opinion of who I am. And if I'm leading with, I'm a queer polyamorous woman who was raised by union organizers, people have a slightly harder time going, oh yeah, she's a fun party. I mean, I am still a fun party, but mostly people can't ignore those other things, even if we're meeting at a kink con, if I'm leading with all of those things when I'm teaching a class there, right? So like, you do a little bit of both. And acknowledging what their boundaries are too, and asking what these questions are before I go, okay, but let's get together 3 of the next 5 weeks.
Do you know what your Enneagram is, Laura?
I have no idea.
You sound like a 7. Just in this moment, 7's the party Enneagram.
It's very possible. I just don't have time or energy to do it anymore, but I have 2 conferences coming up in the next month, so I in fact will.
Yeah, and I
we'll
will
see
be
how it
there.
goes.
And
You're
I
going to
can't
be at
wait
one
for
of
us to
them.
be those
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
And if any of the people in the audience are at Kinky College in Chicago, I will be teaching there. Let's have fun
Shout
next
out
weekend.
to also to Nuclear Fusion app, which if you don't know is our village and chosen family building app, in which we are. Laura, we're going to have you come teach a course for us for the app, because basically what the app is what you just described, is teaching people how to slowly and intentionally build a relationship.
I do better. I still don't do perfect, but I do much better than I used to. But yeah, I think that's basically what I've learned, is going slower enough so that my like friendships can be integrated and comfy, and I can do things like share gardens with my friends, as opposed to, yes, we're going to be besties right now, person I met yesterday.
So I feel so seen right now. I feel so seen. I want to take it to the panel for this one. I also want to acknowledge that my systemic resources greatly influence. Like, I could be very resourced and still be let's be best friends right now, but I've noticed when I lack village connection and I meet a mom on a playground who lets her kids cuss also, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be best friends right now. We're going to hang out every day. You're going to buy the house next door, you know? And so I'm just like, a lot of that comes from my desperation and loneliness and lack of village support as well.
Right. Like, I mean, I still have the fantasy when I meet other moms who are actually on my vibe, but like, I try not to lay my whole hopes and dreams upon it.
Yeah. Yeah. I talked about this in panel 1. Shout out to the new Mistakes Were Made panel 1. I talked about my proclivity for love bombing, which is kind of what you're talking about. Okay, panel, what's landing in your world?
The autistic urge to define acquaintances away from friendships. Because I feel like autistically, what neurotypical people call friends, I categorize as acquaintances, because unless we have an explicit agreement, or you've been to my house, or we've done kink or something weird together, we're not friends. We're acquaintances.
I call them party friends.
Yeah. Like,
Party friends is perfect.
I feel like, and maybe that's just like also the relationship anarchist in me, or the polyamorous person in me. But if love is off the table, how can we be friends? That does not make sense.
I feel that so entirely, but I have different levels, and party friends is the level.
Yeah.
For most people.
I think like I'm resounding with the like really intense friendships. My mommy issues lead me to kind of be Captain Save-A-Ho with like a lot of my relationships with like women and femmes, and then they get really intense because like my really deep friendships often bloom from mutual stress and support in those times. And that's why I always feel like my friends are just like such deep lovers to me, because we come from that place. Now, I'm not saying being Captain Save-A-Ho is good, but
It
I
is
do think,
effective, though.
one more time,
It is effective, though.
it is effective in getting close to people. And then once you like learn your boundaries, you know, like I can't be your accountability person for like addiction stuff because it's triggering, or like, you know, like, maybe I can't always talk about how, this bad thing happened to you because I just don't have the space, or I'm going through my own stuff. Once you put those boundaries in place, it's nice.
Claire, I just got a message from Riverside for Claire that your battery's at less than 20%. So Claire, Riverside wants you to plug your device in so that you don't lose connection to the workshop. Riverside's so cute. Riverside's taking care of everybody while also fucking us up. Okay. Jerry Springer, final thoughts on this one? Oh, you know what, Annie? Oh, no one ever gets my reference on that.
I came home every day after school just to watch Jerry.
Jerry Springer, final thoughts. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio as well. That's where I'm from. Okay, Gabrielle's nice. I like what you added to that one. Okay, we are heading to Che. Mistake number 7. We've got 2 left. How's everyone feeling? The vulnerability has been, I'm feeling spiritually wet.
Same. Okay, this is like such a big one for me. Continuing to prioritize sexual connections over platonic ones, even though that goes against my values as a relationship anarchist. Oof. I've repeated this pattern so many times for so long, and I was like, why do I keep repeating this? And like, big shout out to my queer platonic partners who have bravely and vulnerably shared when they are feeling devalued and like been through this growth edge with me. Oh, yes, thumbs up. And yeah, this is a lifelong practice. And the more time I spend dismantling it, the more that I learn. And it's just like onion layers that keep like going. Yeah. And my mind can reject labels, like we've talked about, like what Laura was saying of like, I can just call it a different thing and then the problem's fixed, right? But these old scripts run so deeply in my body and subconscious. And so this is, yeah, a continual humbling unlearning of how desire and worth and attraction have been socialized in me. Unpacking the ways that I carry colonial sexual scripts that center insatiable conquest and novelty. And noticing internalized relationship narratives that mirror patriarchy, mirror capitalism, like what's exciting, what's productive, sex and romance, what versus what's steady, what's slow, what's communal. And yeah, I feel really proud to be in a place in my life now where my queer platonic beloveds are like, they feel and are, and it's an embodied like way that they're sacred love stories. And that like being practicing all different connections and different flavors of intimacy has really transformed me and expanded me. And I've broken this mistake into four lessons, I think. The first one being intimacy is not just sexual. For a long time, I was defining intimacy through a sexual lens, forgetting that, yeah, the same depth and tenderness and devotion can live in friendship, can live in platonic love, creative collaboration. And there is this like beautiful erotic aliveness for me in laughter, in shared grief, in co-creation, in so many things. Yeah, so really getting to feel, find, explore the intimacy that is beyond sexuality, sex. Lesson number 2 is attention is a form of power. Where I place my time, care, energy reveals what I truly value, not just what I say I value. And learning to redistribute my attention, like to be in alignment and in integrity with my values, is yes, a practice, an ongoing practice. It's not enough to believe in relationship anarchy, right? Like we have to, how do you schedule your week? How are you nurturing your people? How are you nurturing yourself? How are you spending your energy? Values only become real through practice. And, you know, like Annie was saying, like, it's not that I need to have equal hours for sex and equal hours for friendship, but I can make choices that balance where my energy is going, where my attention is. To do this, I practice things like, like really doing my best to show up for my people's milestones, for the important moments in their life, incorporating consensual touch and praise and devotion in my platonic connections. Also, I use this app, I'm curious if y'all are familiar, called Catch Up. It's like a pay $10 one-time thing, and you can input all your people, like contacts all your people, and it allows you to choose a frequency of time that you're connecting with them, which that in itself, to even have that inner inquiry of like, well, what feels like it honors my capacity, and having a conversation about that with that person, right? Of like, what is the vibe and what is the pacing and frequency that we want here? So you put your people in and you choose, do you want to be in contact daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is. And then it notifies you when it's time to connect with that person. This is so good for my autistic brain. And you know, it's like a foundation thing. It's not like rigid, but it's just like there to support me in watering and tending to all my different connections. And when I stop showing up for this, like when I start to not be using this app as much, as like it's like a signal that I'm probably letting a sexual connection or NRE like take over in some way. And in this app you can also include like little journal notes and like how you initiated connection, or like what, and so you have this cute little log of just like, how it's been unfolding and how you've been showing up or not. And lesson number 3 is friendship can be a part of my erotic practice. Friendship being a place of eros, of places where aliveness and curiosity are explored, like things that I practice: cuddling, flirting, writing love notes, cooking meals for each other, making art together. I do these with my friends. Asking myself, what does a sensual friendship look like, feel like to me? And I let erotic energy be a shared life force, not a currency that only circulates in my sexual partnerships, right? Okay, one more. Lesson number 4 is you can be a slut and have deeply nourishing non-sexual connections. And as a being of like deep erotic focus, like special interest for me, I've really needed to give myself full permission to dive into all the types of intimacy that I crave, right? Because repressing them, stigmatizing them, like shaming them, makes it all so hard for me to live into my RA values. But this has meant like carving out time to go to play parties, to hire sex workers, to like learn about my kinks within community. And something I've experimented with and am playing with is like, if you're in a high desire season, or if you're a fellow slut like me, you can like create post-sex like aftercare rituals that weave in your platonic connections, like texting a friend after a hookup to like ground and integrate, or like hosting like pleasure come down dinners and cuddle nights, sharing the stories and the like absurdity of like the things that you're trying or experiencing with your friends, with your platonic loves, as an act of intimacy and trust building. And this really decentralizes sex as like the relational center, and instead roots me in community, even as I center, or not center, even as I like explore a lot of erotic play in my life, because that's really important to me.
Wow.
I'll pause.
I think we all need to pause. I
had to write
the fact
notes
that
while
the
you were
chat
going
is
through that.
quiet right now. I think we're all just like, I have so many questions and I can't even form them. But you and I kind of talked off the record about this share and how it impacted me. So yeah, I'd love to take it to the panel right now.
Yeah, Che, I was thinking about when you like mentioned that connection app and how like helpful it is. It's something I've thought about, like just being like, how often do I want to see this friend? Like, who haven't I like connected with in a while? And something I do because I tend to notice like if I'm spending too much relationship time with people, which feels very intense, so it takes energy. I'm very aware around these people, um, because they light my life up or whatever. Um, I sometimes I go over my calendar every now and again to touch base on how I'm spending my time. Because I notice if I'm not spending friend time, I don't feel like my cup is really full. Um, I don't process things like that are going on in relationships as much, um, or just like even catch up with people and like get those new perspectives or those well-rounded perspectives that like I don't know what life is about for me. And I think like considerations we can make is like, when was the last time you went to a friendly gathering? But also, when was the last time you had a one-on-one and deeply connected with someone you weren't dating? Um, and if you are kind of distant, are you communicating where you are in that place? Like, are you going through NRE so you've been spending all your time with somebody so your friends understand, okay, she's, you know, she met a new man and she's all up under him. Um, are you communicating? Maybe you just are not in a good place, you're depressed, and I'm not ignoring you, I'm just like isolating a lot. Um, and also, I connected with like the friendship erotic practices. I do a lot of platonic play, like a lot of platonic impact play, living out like my bully fantasy, um, just like jumping my friends, or like wrestling and stuff. And it actually releases a lot of the stress or like pressure from it because like we know, it's not going to get sexual, even though kink like gives you sexual feelings. Um, and yeah, and the love letters thing, I find something that's really mutually beneficial that we can do is express gratitude to our friends, like send them text messages just out of nowhere, like I really value our friendship, like what they've brought into your life. It can be a letter, it could be something long, it could be like the other day I texted Jess and I was like, I hope you know you're a star. um, stuff like that to just like affirm people. Because that makes, I don't know, being nice to people, bringing them joy makes me feel good at least. I think it makes us realize life is less grim, because we do have really good people in our lives.
That text made my whole week, Gabby. Just so you know, I was just like, saw my phone, I was like, oh. Yeah, it was the best.
Thank you, Gabby.
I think this mistake is so relatable. Like, I mean, like, I'd be surprised if there's a single non-monogamous person who hasn't made this mistake. And this was one of my biggest motivators to kind of make this leap out of the polyamorous sphere and more into an RA place. My methods have been different because I'm demisexual and I can't have casual sexual relationships. And for that reason, it meant that I had to pare it down to one sexual relationship because having more than one leaves zero room for friendships for me. And I was like chasing NRE, chasing sexuality, chasing that was the only thing that I was doing. And so for me, this is precisely what RA gave me. It helped me like frame what kind of relationships do I want to have with my family? How do I want to live? What kind of friendships do I want? And how do I build those? And I think even if I just have one sexual connection, I still struggle with that in a mononormative way. So I think it like clobbers people from all sides, no matter what their practices. If you have more than one, it just pulls you in two directions. And if you have one, it pulls you in one direction, right? So I think it's like the eternal struggle of the romantic heart, right? It's like, how do we romanticize all our relationships and not just our sexual ones? So great share. Thank you.
Yeah. I was sharing with Che like just around this, like my experience of this is so complicated and intersectional because I'm a hyper romantic demisexual lover girl who is in a queer platonic marriage. Sexually platonic, romantically hyper romantic. So I do not have sex with my husband, who is also my nesting partner, but I am so deeply horny and slutty and very eager to find sexual partnerships. But I'm also a parent. And so when I look at my bandwidth, I really don't have much time. I can maybe see one unnested relationship, friend otherwise, a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really easy for me to prioritize that being a sexual relationship because mama's trying to get railed, especially perimenopause. Y'all, I have never experienced horniness as I have at the ripe age of almost 40. And I feel like as this the body's way of being like, you have one more chance to make a baby. I'm not sure what's going on, but I am horny at all parts of my cycle. I've never experienced that. And so it has been very easy for me to prioritize sexual relationships and to feel entitled to that. So JJ, hearing you say that a lot of that is like a colonial conquest thing was like really powerful for me.
I think also the way other people view those relationships feeds into the cycle of that colonial conquest thing, right? Other people's prioritization of your more visibly romantic, your this is the sexual relationship that does everything relationship, and going, that's the real one, right? Or like treating one as more real than the other because it's more of those boxes checked is a very frustrating experience, but also one that leads you to prioritize one over the other in a way that's not always helpful. And when I say you, I mean me included, right? Like, and that's one of the things that I shared as a promo for this class was sort of about this in some ways. Like, I find that even other non-monogamous people do a lot of, oh, but isn't that just your friend? I'm like, well, yeah, but, right? And so it's that kind of wibbly wobbly situation that I feel like doesn't get enough priority unless we force it to. And this brought up a lot of that for me.
And also I like to ask people, what does just mean in that sentence? What does just a friend mean?
Well, right. And so for some of these people, it means not a sexual relationship, or it means not a romantic relationship, or whatever. And you have to like poke them backwards at it. It's like, well, I just told you that I'm prioritizing it in these ways. Why is that a problem for you? It's not your life. But having to have those conversations over and over again is also exhausting.
It really is. Yeah. I decided to prioritize friendships this year as my New Year's resolution, and it changed my life because in doing so, I ended up meeting reaching out to a mom that had been kind of adjacent to me for many years, and now we're like trying to find property, you know? And that was all because, yeah, just the fusion. It's my fusion family. And I'm like, wow, that's all because I prioritized friendships. Wow. I am still horny though. I really do need to figure that out. Don't tell her I have sex dreams about her. Okay, moving on. She would not be surprised. Okay. It's our last and final one. Mistake number 8. And I just, once again, we are right on time. I am loving this for us. I'm proud of you all. Gabby, that's you, baby.
Yeah, we did that. Look at us. I would think we're a bunch of yappers, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Being concise. Okay, so changing self-assigned labels is not an option, right? There's a lot of like relationship anarchy, imposter syndrome. Um, for a long time, I identified as a non-hierarchical solo polyamorous with relationship anarchist values, which is a mouthful. Identified this way partially because I think a lot of folks have used relationship anarchy to shirk accountability with each other. Not really holding to those more anarchist values that I believe in, like really focusing on things like mutual aid and community. And, relationships aren't always convenient. Sometimes you don't want to drive your friend to the airport at like 6 a.m., but they can't afford the Uber and you have a car. Um, Sometimes you don't want to help a friend move, but again, they can't afford movers. And, maybe they pulled their back, this or that. Sometimes you don't want to, like, it is a burden to help friends through a surgery, a sickness, a significant loss. Like, we are taking on burdens, but that is relationship. Life is a sum of burdens. And because there's so many parts of our relationships that are like this world that makes things so much harder, so much more admin, so much more like bureaucracy, so much this, so much that. Like we need help because a lot of it takes a lot of mental labor. Um, let me double check. But we do these things like out of love, and I think we need to do these things out of love, without expecting anything, just doing them because we want to. Um, we do it out of care. Although I do want to acknowledge that like this can make unequal relationships. Um, and really we just kind of determine how much energy we want to devote to people. And if that you're doing that based off of how much time or energy someone's giving you, if you feel like you're taking advantage of, that's totally cool. Um, so again, like back to self-assigned labels, like I'm at a point where I can no longer be solo. I'm acknowledging my disability, having bipolar, having really bad ADHD. Like right now, I can mostly only do like physical jobs. I bartend on the side. When my meds are inconsistent, like doing work like this is more difficult for me. And there's a ADHD med shortage, and it's really bad in New York. So these disabilities mean that like I either need to make a ton of money to outsource my needs, um, or I need to have a companion in life who will help me with these things, who is open to, helping me with admin, helping me with like these fucking dishes. They stress me out every day. And it would be nice to like have an equal partner and things like that. Have a second income because like, those things are a privilege. Um, and I kind of felt like I couldn't identify with relationship anarchy if I wanted someone to prioritize me like that. But I understand like now I can identify with anarchist values and ask someone to choose me as a priority. Um, I have needs, and even if they kind of align what looks like hierarchy, at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge like inherent hierarchies in dynamics. Like if you live with somebody, that is a hierarchy. That gives you certain like benefits. If you are married to somebody, that is a hierarchy. It might be descriptive, and most of our hierarchies are descriptive. It's just about time. But if um, we can like work to neutralize those hierarchies and not treat them as above. These are just like institutional in a way. Um, I think it's a good example is like relationship anarchists can be monogamous. Usually the monogamy is an open choice or it's, you know, open to interpretation or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all about our individual choices. So part of me like feels like this was a betrayal to my values, like the idea that I may choose to put a partner first, but it I realize like it doesn't make my other relationships less important. It doesn't mean my other relationships can be equal or even above those things. The person I choose to live with or prioritize. Um, I just need more support and like care than solo living, or like currently like living with a roommate and having separate finances and stuff like is doable. Um, it doesn't mean horizontality is no longer possible. And like as we move through life, we grow, our needs can change. And when there are conscious choices, they're not really influenced by others. Like that's okay. It doesn't make you an imposter. And that doesn't change my like baseline values, which means I create my partnerships. I choose to make equitable room for partnerships, friendships, all of that. So, like, labels don't really matter. Language is just a helpful tool. It helps us navigate the world, and we can use words and know that they don't mean the exact definitions that we are using. Like, just like in a sexy, kinky space, we can like belong to someone, claim things like you're mine. You can call people your favorite, the love of your life, without it being exclusionary. Like, I can be like, you're my favorite, and go to the next person and be like, you're also my favorite. It doesn't have to be so isolating in that way. And I think, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, like we decide what works best for us, and that doesn't invalidate our journeys. Um, and just like it looks, just in case it looks, just because something looks like something or it changes, it doesn't mean you're being um, not true to yourself. It means that you just are changing and like your needs change.
Mm, that was, I can imagine the journey that you had to go on in
Mm-hmm.
order to get to this place and how perfect for where you're at in your life right now,
Mm-hmm.
too. I'm so happy for you
Oh,
that you have called in, that you have called in what you've been wanting.
mm-hmm.
Let's take it to the panel. What's landing in your world with Gabrielle Share, panelists?
Well, I talk a lot about changing labels. I relate to this so much, especially having moved from like a deeply polyamorous marriage and getting divorced, and then being in a queer platonic space. And I remember my ex-husband, in the process of my divorce, basically saying, you better not tell your followers that you don't have more than one sexual partner, because you're gonna get fucking canceled, right? Like, they're not gonna believe in your validity as a polyamorous person anymore. And I think it was just deeply, deeply intimidating to consider shifting a label, let alone like identifying with a different practice. And like, I see this reflected all the time in peer supports. Like, people will make peer supports just to ask me, what does it mean if I was doing this and now I'm doing that? Right. And so like, it's it's funny because I recently had this conversation with Juan Carlos Cortez Perez, who wrote the Occupy Intimacy book, because like people kept saying to me, you can't be monogamous and be a relationship anarchist, right? And I voice memoed him like in a panic. And I was like, is it true? Like, is it what they're telling me? Is that right? Like, philosophically, this doesn't align. Like, what you're saying here and what Tuck Malloy says here and what this person says here, right? Like, you're like, it's okay, right? Like, it's just tell me. And he was like, there's no labels after a certain point. Once you reach a certain point of practice, everything just kind of melts away and you just do what you do, right? Like in kink, we call it, for people who don't like to identify as kinky, they tend to call it what it is we do, right? And so like, I think about this a lot, especially in terms of relationship anarchy, because sometimes you do get to that what it is we do place where it doesn't matter anymore, and you're gonna shift labels depending on life stage or partners or whatever it is you're going through. Nothing is fixed.
Yeah, I have like
Share.
chosen fam, and I'm trying to explain the relationship with this group of people always, and I'm like, I just end up going, these are some of my closest people, because like lover, friends, even like family sounds a bit Like it doesn't fit. Like these are just my people.
I like that. There's a cute little book about polyamorous families called How Many Grown-Ups Do You Have? Which is a way that you can normalize asking children without the mononormativity of assuming what type of family they have. And not just mononormativity, but assuming, whatever like nuclear family normativity. So I like that. Reminds me of that. Just like, how many people do you have? How many grown-ups do you have? Instead of how many partners do you have? Because it's like, well, what is a partner? At some point, we're all just friends. Yeah. Che, I feel like you're about to say something.
Yeah, but I forgot. What was it? I guess I think I was just reflecting on like this, like the times through my life that I have changed like labels and how it's happened in all different parts and ways. And I was thinking about my like lesbian to pansexual to demisexual to queer pipeline, like just like in the self-permission of getting to also like try things on and getting to like and then be like, yeah, self-defining of what these things mean. And it takes a lot of courage because of the like bullying and perception of other people and what they think and da, da, da. But it is so freeing to like be fluid and ever evolving and to give myself permission to change labels through time. Yeah.
And like the idea of it's not less anarchist to say, I might want a thing that at the end looks a little bit like we did the escalator, right? Because you're allowed to want a relationship that you want. And the little section of the manifesto that's like customize your commitments, like specifically calls out, do you want to have a house together? Okay, so it takes some work to have a house together, plan those commitments. Right? Sometimes here in the actual world we live in, somebody needs to be married on paper for some reasons. And like, you might want that. You might want the security of that. Right? In the world of 2025 that we live in, I might end up with no health insurance in 2026. And so I might want to get married to somebody for some goddamn health insurance. And why wouldn't it be someone who I care about in some other dimensions as opposed to like somebody I don't know from Steve? And so when you put all those things together, at the end of putting together several of these dimensions, might it look like we built a whole escalator relationship? It might. But did we come to it from a place that's more intentional? And do we have other connections that are outside of those norms? Yeah. So have we done it through this philosophy and through this way of relating? And with the horizontality that you're talking about, where the other people in our lives are equally prioritized, where we're giving mutual aid to the other people in our lives, where we're caring for one another. Cool, great. Like, I just think that's important to note because it's not like being able to change our labels in any dimension is important, but being willing to do it even in a way that looks more normative, not less, is I think one of the bigger struggles about it.
Yeah, because we still
Yeah,
live in
it's
this
more.
capitalist patriarchal world, like, or just the capitalist aspect of it. And like, we have to acknowledge, like, as much as we have these theoretical values, like, we still live in this world.
Yeah, and I think it's more about if we ended up wanting the things on the escalator, it's more of a coincidence and not because it's the escalator or we were given a script, which is what I talk a lot about in my Defying Gravity Intro to Relationship Anarchy workshop, which I will be teaching in Midwest Love Fest. And Laura will be at that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Okay, so now we can head to broad Q&A, dear listeners. This is the broad Q&A time. You can hit us with any question. It can be something that popped into your mind from listening to this panel today. It could be just a generic question you have about relationship anarchy, anything like that. I'm also putting children's books in the link. So there's one from Katie Coleman called And That's Their Family. There's one called How Many Grown-Ups Do You Have? And of course, there is my new book called All My Friends Are Best, a children's guide to relationship anarchy. And it's super cute. It's about a little girl named Pumpkin and her very queer family and her journey to discover that all of her friends are best. And there's a lot of queer and polyamorous representation in the book, but it's like in the background. It's like an aside, you know, it's not the focus of the book. So that's really fun. And you can pre-order it, and it will be mailed out just before the holidays. Britt says, no questions, just want to say thank you to everyone involved. I've gone through literally all of the emotions during this. This is why I recommended chocolate. From laughter to pain, flare up and crying, to just feeling so much immense joy and gratitude for this gathering and y'all's wisdom. Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much,
coming.
Britt. That means so much to us. In addition to Q&A, I would love to hear from people what you're walking away from this panel with. And this is for the panelists as well. I would love to hear from my panelists what you're walking away from this experience with. And I would love to hear from our viewers what you are walking away, or some of the notes that you took, or the thing that you needed to hear today, what led your soul to this webinar today. Nikki says, I was a last minute joiner, but so glad this was really helpful in my self-expression journey as well as relationship stuff I am going through. The planets are doing weird stuff right now. I feel like this panel was divinely timed. I was so blessed when I reached out and all you bitches said yes. Jerry says, I am anxious to share the recording with my most valuable people and the conversations that will follow. I'm curious about the adjective anxious. Is that a verb? That's an adjective. Anxious. Oh, why do you use anxious? Like anxious as in excited to share, or anxious as in nervous? Looking forward to. Okay, Jerry's looking forward to sharing the recording. Yes.
I think for me, the thing I want to share that I'm walking away with, because I think that people assume because you have a big following or because you're chronically online that you have support. And I'm very isolated, right? I'm in a deep red county, and I lost my whole support system when I divorced. And so it's really imperative for me to be in online communities and participate in stuff like that, where I see what is going on for other people. So like, if that's why you showed up today, that's also why I showed up today, right? Like, we don't always have the support systems that we need, and online spaces are like increasingly important for like solidarity and just not feeling alone. So I think for me, it feels validating and like good, not just to see like people's mistakes, but I think like to remember that we can move through relationship styles in like the broad strokes of the ways that we do throughout our lifetime. And it's not a statement on like personal failing or you're not doing it right. I just think there's a lot of value in that for me personally, because I've had varying capacities over the years as a parent, as a divorcee, as a person trying to become educated. And yeah, like, you know, you see us online every day, but that's not necessarily what you don't see is that I go to bed alone, right? Like you don't see that. So yeah, that's what I'm taking away today.
Thank you for sharing that, Annie. I think the thing I'm taking away with, which is the thing that inspired this whole series. And so there is panel 1, which was Mistakes Were Made, the initial polyamory edition with Avita Sawyers, Genevieve King of Chill Polyamory, and Shanae Jackson Kendall, which is fabulous. And then this will continue. So there's going to be a Mistakes Were Made Polyamory and Parenthood edition. There's going to be a Mistakes Were Made Solo Poly edition. We're just going to keep this going. But for me, I remember when I was learning to ski as a kid, the person who was teaching, which skiing, if you have frustration intolerance as a neurodivergent child, child or any sense of perfectionism is a really, really difficult sport to learn. And I remember the instructor saying, if you're not falling, you're not skiing hard enough, which was the permission that I needed. Because I wanted to be the person who got on the hill and didn't fall. And the instructor was like, wow, you look like you barely need any lessons. And Che, I hope this isn't oversharing, but Che at one point during this process over the last month was like, wow, this is really challenging my perfectionism, getting up here and sharing my mistakes. And so I have a lot of rejection sensitivity, and I experience embarrassment really intensely. And I have done a lot of stupid shit as a content creator, and y'all have seen me just make mistakes live in front of your face. And it has been so powerful for me to remember that the mistakes are what make me a good educator and not my perfectionism. And so getting on here, and I wouldn't trust an educator who wasn't talking about their mistakes. So getting on here with these people that I admire, like these are my colleagues and my friends, but I'm also huge fans of all of these people. And I woke up today with gratitude that I get to do what I'm doing, and that putting our mistakes first on the platform, on the microphone, has been deeply healing for me and my inner child who wanted to be perceived as perfect. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Thank you, Jess. My perfectionism is so intense. Like, grew up as like a competitive gymnast, and like it was, it was everything to try and be perfect in so many ways. And it's been like the deepest exhale to be in this space with y'all, and like this is the only way I want to do it, is to be able to talk about the ways that I'm imperfect and have fucked up and am learning through that. I like cringe at like being even perceived as any kind of expert, or like, I don't even love being a teacher. I want to be a human with other humans. And so this is like so healing for me. Yeah, just really grateful.
Well, you may not be trying to be an educator, but I learned so much from you, bitch. Thank you for being so yourself in the online space. It's so healing, especially for my inner slut.
That makes my heart happy.
Yeah, right on. Some really beautiful shares in the chat right now. That I really like this one that says, I have work to do to continue to remove patriarchal rules and expectations from my relationships, from my bi-poly RA relationships, including having the confidence for honest communication with my partners, less trauma response and people pleasing. Amen. Somebody says, constantly doing that work of deconstructing the rules and expectations, and lots of good reminders today that it's okay to be a little messy and go really slow with finding out what works for you. Yes, which is all decolonizing work. Going slow equals decolonization.
Yeah, just removing the urgency, guys. Remember that this is our whole lives, right? None of this is stuff that has to happen today. Even though a lot of it might feel like it kind of has to, almost nothing is as urgent as you think it is. And that, like, inbred sense of urgency is almost all white supremacy culture telling you that this is urgent and immediate and needs to happen this instant. That instant gratification stuff is not real.
You got to Amazon Prime your growth 2 days or less.
Yep. Somebody in the comments, I think, is saying that their ADHD says that it has to be urgent. And like, I understand. Look, I also feel that, but like almost always we can give it space to breathe and it will do better.
It's really humbling to have neurodivergent children who grew up in this. I mean, my oldest is 7 years old, right? And so their whole lives is something arriving 2 days after they ordered. And so watching the sense of urgency and entitlement in my neurodivergent child who experiences that neurodivergent binary right now, everything must experience the dopamine, and recognizing, seeing the mirror in that, and recognizing how little I tell myself no and how little I practice slowing down and the the somatic boundary sacred no that Che was talking about earlier. Okay, so without further ado, Dana, and thank you, applause for Dana, please, for running our back end here. Dana always holding down the fort beautifully and silently on the back end. Dana's going to pull up our panelist plugs here. Dana slays. Also, Dana, can you get on this microphone, please? We didn't give you a panel plug, but Dana has some things to share. I'm not going to put you on the spot, girl. But Dana, if you wanted to get on the mic and talk about the things that you do, my book earrings fell behind my dresser, which I'm not capable of moving, but I have really cute book earrings that Dana made for me. Yeah. Dana, do you want to share?
I guess I don't have a choice but to
Nope,
do that.
you don't. Okay, thank you.
No, it's fine. I can do it. I'm technically in the lab right now. Hi all, I'm Dana. I had nothing prepared, but one of the things that I do, one of my businesses is called Crafty Little Day, and what I do is that I make bookish earrings. It's super niche, I get it, but I'm a reader girl, so I've been working on an order that's right here, so I'm just gonna hold up some of these earrings for you all to see. And so it's got the cover, the page is actually open. I did not there's no words in there. I suppose you could. Sorry, I have this set like
and
here.
You actually get to pick the books that are in the earrings.
So they're custom. You choose the books. I do triple dangles. I do double dangles. I can do studs. This is a pair that's been in beta since August and in beta because I've not figured out what I want to charge for it, but let me do the influencer thing. And so this lets you put 3 books on a triangular, square, circle. It comes in different shapes. I also have a charm bracelet. I know everyone's not an earring girly. I get it. I also make a charm bracelet version, which my cousin is betaing. So there's lots of options, but I think just put my link.
I just put the link in, y'all. I have the triple stack, and I chose my 3 favorite spiritual books. And everywhere I go, not only do people compliment them, but really gorgeous women compliment them and then ask to come touch them. And then it gives me an opening. So Dana's my long distance wingman. So highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Right. Let me help you get laid.
Yes. Yes.
Let me help you get laid.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Dana, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for getting on the mic and being here and sharing your art. And for panel 3, girl, you will have a slide in the deck. Okay, don't let me forget. So I know I was just kind of like, not super, I still was on the panel, I guess, in my own way today, but here's a resource page for myself. So you can join my Patreon. We're actually at 4 years of content now. In September, we passed 4 years of exclusive content on my Patreon, which includes the personal blogs of both myself and my husband. We have a polyamory and parenthood book that you can get on Kindle, in print, and as an ebook. All My Friends Are Best is my children's book. I'm so proud of it. It's really cute. It's the cutest story. It has a lot of diversity. There are body size diversity, racial diversity, and ability diversity just in the characters in the book. So please order that and support me. And one of my many artistic husbands that I've been making art with for 20 years is the illustrator on that book. We have the Remodeled Love podcast, which is also 4 years old and free. There's exclusive episodes on the Patreon. This is number 9 in a series of pre-recorded recorded workshops. Some are pre-recorded, some happen live, and it's the live recording, which you can get at remodeledlove.com. And of course, my life changed forever the day I decided to talk about an idea for a village and chosen family building app called Nuclear Fusion. I never expected it to go anywhere, and the universe had other plans. So I am surrendering to that as much as possible. So if you are interested in being a part of our global project, our global mission to undo the fission created for many people, not everyone, but for many people, you can join nuclearfusionnetwork.com. And we have a really big announcement coming out in 12 days from now, really big. So we will go to the next slide. Thank you for being here, everybody. Chet.
Yay. I started, because of my really intense perfectionism, started the Queer and Perfectionist Club with my husband, Frankie. And yeah, it's a really beautiful neurodivergent space where we're talking about relationship anarchy, gender, sexuality, getting into the body, all that good stuff. And we also did a recorded Q&A called How the Fuck Do I Do This? Decolonizing Your Relationships. And I do work one-to-one. I have a wait list for my container called Pleasure Breakthrough. So if you're interested, the link is there. And I have some free embodiment offerings as well. In my, here's one, there's a pelvic intimacy ecosomatic workbook. I have some more in my link in bio on Instagram and on my website.
And Che, you have an Only Fruits.
I do have an Only Fruits. Please come play.
If you want to really talk about healing that inner
Yes,
slut.
if you want to be in my embodied erotic research space, real-time space.
Yes. Okay, moving on.
Wow, that was harder than it needed to be. Um, yeah, I mean, on Instagram, you can always reach me at by Gabrielle Smith. That's where the majority of my work is. I talk about non-monogamy from an intersectional uh, place. I've lately been getting into a lot of how society impacts our relationships, how institutions have taught us what our relationships are supposed to be, and just how we can build better families and lives that work for us. Just some resources as well. I have two recordings available online. The first one's what kind of non-monogamy works for you. It's kind of just an overview of non-monogamy, things to consider before or while you're figuring it all out. And then I have a jealousy workshop that goes through kind of all the types of jealousy, why jealousy often occurs, how attachment is kind of connected to jealousy, and just a lot of those questions people ask. It's one of the biggest things people ask about, so it's nice to tackle it. And if you're based in New York City or Long Island or anywhere around there, I occasionally do live in-person events called Sweet Talk. They're for non-monogamous community building, sex-positive community building. The emphasis really is that it's a safe space for neurodivergent weirdos. I have a lot of games. Ultimately, I think how would I interact with people? What would make it the easiest for me to do it? And then I make it happen. Yeah, it's lots of fun. We're gonna start doing salons soon for, kind of things like this, but in real life. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have been on this panel with all these amazing people.
So, I have a million different recorded workshops and stuff up, but I've highlighted a couple of them that are about relationship anarchy. My one with Ro Moed that's called Anarchy in Your Relationships. And then one that Annie and I did together that's called What the Fuck is Relationship Anarchy? And another one, Deconstructing the Relationship Escalator, that Annie and I also did together, are the three that are probably the most directly about relationship anarchy as opposed to other non-monogamy topics. In general, I've got a bunch of my classes recorded and up on my Ko-Fi shop. So if folks are interested in hearing more from me, those are the places where you can find the pre-recorded stuff as opposed to live things. Live, if you don't happen to be any of the places that I am coming up, I'm teaching with Wicked Grounds monthly from November to next February. The November class is one about wax, but then it's relationship topics every month following that. And I think only the November class has tickets up yet, but as soon as the other ones come up, I'll stick them in my link tree. So keep an eye on that, which you can get to from my Instagram. Got new content coming up all the time. I have 2 books out. One is Ready for Polyamory, A Pragmatic Guide to Consensual Non-Monogamy, which is out in audiobook, paperback, and ebook format. And then Monogamy in This Economy, which is a book based on research I did on folks living in 3 or more adult households, which unfortunately is only out in paperback. But I did that with a traditional publisher, and they control the rights as to whether or not it comes out in audiobook. It is an ebook as well, but limited release. And I do coaching with folks who are individuals, dyads, or polycule segments. If you're interested in that, again, it's all sort of in the links in my bios places. So yeah, I'm around. You can find me places, and I had a great time teaching with everybody today.
What is this photo from, Laura? It's giving magical.
My friend Stephanie is a local photographer and called for people to do photo shoot, to be like the folks who were on her website, to promote her doing photographs based on people's zodiac signs, and wanted people to be her fire sign. So this is me being a fire sign muse.
Obsessed.
I think every
Okay, we're
fire
gonna head
sign.
to the last one here.
Sorry.
I can't believe the whole panel is Leos. That's crazy.
I literally have that head
Okay.
thing as well.
Last slide here, I think, is Annie's. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can find me lots of places. Of course, please follow me on, Instagram. I have the same workshops that Laura mentioned. We did What the Fuck is Relationship Anarchy and On the Relationship Escalator together. I also have on my Ko-Fi a short talk on relationship anarchy, a little bit more of like my philosophy and what I feel like relationship anarchy is, and that's totally free. I do peer supports. I've done over 400 peer support sessions so far. It's kind of a little bit of like the bread and butter. I do 30, 60, and 90 minutes. I have about 7 spots open a week if anybody's interested in peer support. And there are lots of ways to access that, including through my Patreon, where I give super deep discounts on my peer supports, including like $55 session, $30 sessions. And then of course the Patreon is where I put all of my spicy stories, my kink. I have an entire relationship anarchy collection on there, as well as just like kind of sharing, I would say daily, but like 5 times a week on my close friends list on Instagram about intergenerational living, trying to engage with healthy love, which, is at any given moment going some way. And then, of course, there's lots more non-monogamy workshops and resources on my Ko-Fi, as well as my links in bio on Instagram. So, yeah, thanks for having me today. This was an amazing time and just wonderful community experience.
Thank you, everyone, so much for the your presence here today on the call, on the webinar, and for your support. You will be getting a copy of the unedited recording by Wednesday, so keep a lookout in your inbox for that. And make sure you subscribe to everyone's newsletters or whatever we offer here so that you can stay up to date and we can divest from the algorithmic asshole apps that screw over creators but also are stealing your data. So please go subscribe to everyone's stuff here so that you can stay in direct contact with us. And I'm going to ask the panelists to stay on so I can love on you for a minute or two, but we're going to say goodbye to our viewers today. Thank you so much for being here and for witnessing us in our humanness.